Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from Earth 616 to Earth 828 to the Mojoverse to the TVA in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm the nerd with the mouth, David.
Alliance Assemble.
Assemble.
Volume 268, and we are now 1 week, almost, basically, 1 week removed from the release of Fantastic Four First Steps. So, there was news that dropped last week that, Mr. Feige decided to go on the record with stuff, so we're going to break all that down. And when I mean all of it, we're going to go over pretty much all of it at that point, because when you give interviews and you start giving separate interviews, you talk about different things. And so there's some interesting things to go over. And then they drop more news and a trailer and some other things, and we got box office. So buckle up, Marvel Alliance listeners. This is probably a little bit of a long one tonight, but David and I will keep you entertained, keep you in the know, and give you our opinions on the lovely givings that Mr. Feige dropped on us. So, Mr. David, how are you tonight?
I am doing well. It has been a long week. I'm not wearing my shoulder brace, but I am still
about to say I'm not wearing it. I would say pants.
This is a glass desk, so no. But I'm not wearing my shoulder brace, but I'm still in recovery and waiting to hear on surgery. But don't worry, dear viewers and listeners, as long as they don't schedule surgery on a Thursday at 5 o'clock, I will still be here.
Yes, we got a FIFA Jack already in the chat. He says, I've caught up with your FF content and amazing. I agree with what you guys are saying. Amazing or fantastic? I agree with what you guys are saying about the latest installment of FF, except I'm between 7.5 and 8 for the movie. That's respectable. And I need to watch it one more time to solidify my rating, but that has to wait until it comes for streaming. Well, same here. Same here. Yeah. David's ahead of both of us. He's got at least 2 viewings in.
Yeah, my official ratings never come until after my second viewing, because my first one, there is a little bit of recency bias, and the second one, I have a little bit more time to dissect and be like, oh, I didn't notice that thing that makes that scene just that much more incredible.
Yeah, so, but yeah, the week for me, it's the week before, literally, well, technically staff can come back tomorrow, but it's an uncapped work day, so some will be back, some will take that 3-day weekend in, and then next week, staff comes back. We got open house, so it's gonna be, it's gonna be a very busy week. Next time you probably talk to me, it's gonna be I'm gonna be pretty tired. So, yeah. But yeah, there's going to be some interesting stuff. Yep, Julio, we're gonna definitely talk about that in not the main segment, but in the news segment. So stay tuned for that. In regards to the X-Men casting. So, but yeah, good week so far. Wife and kids are back, and I know if you're not on the viewership, not watch on YouTube, I'll have to describe this, or David will describe this, but I got something that I was not prepared to receive, because I ordered a few of these because of the show, and the others should be coming in September and October, but this one, interestingly enough, came out this week from Entertainment Earth.
Oh, that is an amazing Funko, and now I understand your choice of shirt tonight.
Yes, what I am holding up is the Entertainment Earth exclusive Funko of Matt Murdock holding out of costume, but holding up the Daredevil helmet in costume at that point. But I don't know if it's still available on Entertainment Earth, but I had pre-ordered that. I didn't realize till I got a random shipping from them notice this week, and I was like, oh, okay. But I have the normal Daredevil and Frank Castle. Sometime from Amazon will be coming in September or October. So
yeah, my ones from Amazon keep fluctuating as well. I'm looking right now to see. Let's see. They say now arriving October 6th. So
okay. Yep, that's the same for me. But that was a nice surprise to get that. But it is Daredevil. It is. It was very glorious. But those are out of costume. Then I got the in costume. Then I got Frank. So I mean, all is well. Yep. But yeah, so since we have a lot to talk about tonight, we're just going to jump in straight to the network plugs. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 6 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUAPod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers. We've got our $1 tiers, our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job? And then we have our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episode, and Patreon exclusive shows, including our first show. We can watch this all day, the Marvel Alliance Infinity Saga rewatch, all where we broke down all the Infinity Saga movies in chronological order, giving our reviews. And then we have our Tales from the House of X, where we broke down our favorite X-Men movies from the Fox era of X-Men. And now we are in the middle of the Baxter broadcast, the Fantastic Four retro film reviews. We have the unreleased Fantastic Four from 1994, directed by Roger Corman. That has dropped. The original Fantastic Four from 2005 has dropped this past week. And David and I have recorded the Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. That has been recorded, and it will drop August 25th. And in a few weeks, I do this for you, the fans. I will say this until it is done, and once it is done, it will finally happen. I'm going to be watching Fan Four Stick for the very first time and reviewing it for Patreon. So if that gets you to want to join Patreon to see that, I appreciate that. I do this for you, the people, because I will. I will try to find some good in the movie. But if you want that content, and the DC Alliance guys doing their DC films through the years, Joe doing his multiverse minutes, and Disney Dives looking at all the animated films in chronological order, dropping on the 1st and 15th of every month, and a lovely back content, go to www.patreon.com/GUA Network so you know when get all that information. We want to thank our patrons. We cannot do this without your support. And last, but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. Got these lovely new Marvel pre-orders coming out, tons of new epics and re-releases of epics. We've got Avengers No Surrender, No Road Home omnibus. We've got the 3rd volume of Secret Wars Battle War. All the tie-ins. There'll be one more of those coming. We have a Amazing Spider-Man omnibus by Zeb Wells, Volume 1. Good luck to you all on reading that. It is not necessarily the page turner we were hoping for. And then we've got nope. X-Men Road to Onslaught omnibus Volume 2, concluding that, and then Excalibur omnibus Volume 4. So that was something that was a nice surprise. So we got 2 codes for it. Use that code MARVELGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. Or you can use that code MGUASIT for 5% off when you order 4 or more books together. It lets them know you're a listener. We want to thank them, as always, for being our official sponsor. All right, David. So with everything, Mr. Feige had decided to do interview at the beginning of last week, or at least the article started coming out in anticipation not only of the Fantastic Four, but also since Marvel Studios was not doing a Hall H panel, he does this pretty frequently, even when they're doing a Hall H panel where, they're not going to be able to talk about everything. So, this is quite standard for him. But, man, he let a lot of stuff go into, including kind of eating some crow and, getting in front of the stuff that, for the most part, we've been kind of clamoring for some answers about.
Yeah, he came out the gate and said gag orders are only for Tom Holland, and I'm telling everything.
Yep, exactly. Not necessarily everything, but yeah, he got a little real at points. So so we're gonna break this down. A lot. I'm gonna cover this. The first one we're gonna be looking at the Hollywood Reporter, then going into Variety and Deadline. I went through all these for you, the people, so you don't have to read them, and kind of broke down. Hollywood Reporter's gonna have their biggest stuff. The rest of them, I'm going to look through and see if there was anything different that they asked or got information for. So this is going to be kind of our main segment tonight. It's going to be a little bit long, but we're going to kind of talk about what Mr. Feige give our kind of thoughts on this. Some things will be a little bit long to talk about. Other things will be pretty quick. But we figured this is something that there. And we've got Detoll here. Not North Carolina. Go Clemson. Well, we all have to make choices in life. Some are the right ones, some are the wrong ones. I'll let you decide where you're at.
Clemson is definitely a choice.
Yep, good to see you, Detoll.
There's someone on a different GUA channel that will agree with your Clemson one, but not here.
Not here. Yeah, not here. So, anyways, so starting off with the Hollywood Reporter, they start off by saying, yes, Feige knows Marvel made too many movies and shows and other things they did wrong. You know, they said that for the first Iron Man 2008 to Endgame, Marvel produced around 50 hours of storytelling. In 6 years since Endgame, that number jumped to an astounding 102 hours of movies and television, 127 if you include animation. He said that is too much. He characterized the time period after Endgame as an era of experimentation, evolution, and unfortunately, expansion. And while he's proud of some of the experimentation, he points to WandaVision and Loki as the standouts. He admits it's an expansion that is certainly what devalued that output. Being high on success may have pushed Marvel to readily agree to try to deliver as more programming, but as he said, it was a big company push, and it doesn't take too much to push us to go. People have been asking for Miss Marvel for years, and now we can do it. Do it. Oscar Isaac wants to be Moon Knight. Do it. Recalled Feige. So there was a mandate that we were put in the middle of, and we also thought it'd be fun to bring these to life. Marvel has always started pulling back the amount of movies and shows they make. Some years, he said, they may only have one movie. Certainly, there will be years with only one TV show. Also, Marvel has started grinding down on budgets with movies costing up to a third cheaper than the films from 2022 to 2023. So, this is nothing new that, Feige has gone on the record of this, but in fact, just hearing him basically saying, yep, and kind of calling out the previous people who were under him, namely Bob Chapek and some of the other ones that kind of made this push. And I think he's right in the sense of I do applaud them going, as he terms it, experimental or taking some chances on things. But I don't know, David. I think there were a few ones that were like, might have needed to rest on that, or might have to let that cook a little bit. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I do appreciate that he gave love to WandaVision and Loki, which are two phenomenal series. But yeah, he does admit that there were times where they were just like, if we can do it, let's do it. If someone comes up and says, hey, I wanted to make this, they were green lighting left and right. And, in the grand scheme of things, that takes away from the time that other projects have to cook and to be in the zeitgeist of everyone else. That takes away from actors' abilities to be in other things. We may have somebody who was in something and they could have been a better fit for something else, but we're just green lighting left and right and grabbing actors up left and right. It does kind of muddy the water a little bit. So I can respect what he's saying. I appreciate the fact that they were willing to take these chances and take these risks on these shows. But yeah, in retrospect, the vast expansion and how far they expanded so far so soon, it did hurt them in the long run, and then it created that feeling of Marvel burnout.
Yeah. And they go into another kind of hot button topic. Here is why Thunderbolts failed, even though it's a very, very good movie. The massive expansion television and focus on Disney Plus led to the feeling that watching Marvel had become a type of homework. Feige said, it's that expansion that I think led to people say, do I have to see all these? It used to be fun, but now I have to know everything about all of these. And I think the Marvels hit it the hardest, where people were like, okay, I recognize her from a billion-dollar movie, but who are those other two? I guess they were in some TV show. I'll skip it. And this had the same effect on Thunderbolts Asterisk, which featured characters that were mainly seen on different platforms, including some only appearing on shows before hitting the big screen. Kevin Feige said some of them were still feeling the residual effects of the notion of, I guess I have to have seen these other shows in order to understand who this is. I think if you actually saw the movie, that wouldn't be the case. And we make the movie so that it's not the case. But I think we still have to make sure the audience understands that. And that's something that we kind of talked about, that, we both really enjoyed Thunderbolts. For all three of these movies this year, that, Fantastic Four First Steps and Thunderbolts kind of rank at the top. In Captain America, kind of, I would say, to be fair to both of us, probably is our third one from MCU this year. But it doesn't make it a bad movie. But when you have the quality of what Thunderbolts was, it's a great character study. But if you didn't, outside of the Black Widow characters, if you didn't see some of the others at that point, you don't really have a full understanding. And why would you want to see a movie that you really don't have some sort of connection to?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Thunderbolts, to me, it was an amazing movie, and I love the theme. I love some of the stories that it told within there. But I do know that as I talk to people about it, having to say, well, in order to get this part, you need to know this from this character, or they came from this, or they came from that, which in turn, this past week, when trying to sell people and going and seeing Fantastic Four, the only thing I've really had to say is no homework required. And that has been the linchpin for people to go, okay, I can go see it. I don't have to watch 10 things. I don't have to run down Disney Plus and figure out which order. Awesome. So I can definitely see where that would hurt a general audience who hasn't seen a lot of these things, who maybe skipped over Black Widow or skipped over Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or skipped over Ant-Man 2, and don't have the ties to these certain characters.
Yep, as Julio said, Thunderbolts are a group of C-list characters that was hard to market on. Yeah, even with the pivot towards what it said, like new Avengers. You know, I was, it was a cool idea, but even I was like, I don't think that's gonna play the way you want it to, and it didn't. And but again, you know, it doesn't take away that it's a good movie, that it wasn't a good movie, but it's just the connection too. So, but they go on to talk about how long Feige's got. He does admit he does have about 2 years left, 2 years or less on his current contract with, you know, technically Disney, the Disney company under Marvel Studios. And he says, do I want to be making big movies for big audiences in 10 or 15 years from now? Yes, absolutely. That's all I want to do. Marvel's a great way to do that for me right now, but I hope to make big movies for lots of people forevermore. So, again, it sounds like he's not looking to leave Marvel, but it doesn't seem like he wants to basically just be Marvel if he has an option. But right now, you know, he's 2 years on his contract. I still think there's going to be a small extension where he's gonna. I think he wants to shuttle in and bring in the X-Men under the MCU before he starts looking for an exit strategy.
Oh, he's definitely going to get an extension. They're going to take him through Doomsday and Secret Wars. Those movies have been getting pushed back and getting altered, so we're at least carrying through there. And you know that he wants to be the one. He's put in all this work. He wants to be the one who ushers in the X-Men, because that is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've done all the work for that, you've laid all this groundwork, then absolutely.
So he also addresses Jonathan Majors for the first time, but without talking about Jonathan Majors. So he refers to him in this quote as the Kang actor. He said, "We had started even before what had happened to what happened to the actor. We had started to realize that Kang wasn't going to be big enough, and he wasn't Thanos, and that there was only one character that could be that, because he was in the comics for decades and decades," said Feige. "Because of the Fox acquisition, we finally had it, and it was Doctor Doom. So we had started talking about Doctor Doom even before we officially pivoted from Kang. And in fact, I had started talking with Robert Downey Jr. about this audacious idea before Ant-Man 3 even came out. It was a long plan that we had to take one of the greatest characters and utilize one of our greatest actors." All right. This is where you and I are probably going to have spent a little time on, because I'm not saying they probably didn't have discussions with Robert Downey Jr. about the idea of Doom, but I'm going to call shenanigans on this, that the fact that they were already talking about making Doom the bigger bad than Kang before Ant-Man came out, after the positive nature of what Kang was in, He Who Remains and Loki had such a big hit. And actually, outside of the end of Kang was actually, Jonathan Majors was actually praised on like being a glowing moment of Ant-Man 3. Doom might have been an idea that they were toying with, of being part of Secret Wars. But I mean, for crying out loud, again, they named Avengers the Kang Dynasty. So please don't tell me that you didn't have, you went all in for Kang too quick, and then unfortunately, when what happened to Jonathan Majors started leaking to the press and the court things and everything like that, yeah, I get it. I would have. I think there's some truth in this, but I really kind of said, "Oh, come on, Kevin Feige, please, just admit that you had to make a pivot, and this is what happened. It wasn't necessarily maybe when you wanted to introduce Doctor Doom, you may have wanted to do it a little bit further down the line and lead up to Secret Wars, but this kind of pushed your hand in that you had to make some changes. I would have respected that. This one, it just doesn't ring true to me. I don't know. What do you feel?
Yeah, I don't believe it. And as a wrestling fan, this reminds me of controlling the narrative. Plans
Not well.
change and things like that. But plans change, and now you're trying to take it as some off the wall comment someone probably made in a writer's room, like, hey, what if we had Robert Downey Jr. come back as Doom? You're now taking that one little throwaway comment and saying, oh, it was always our plan. It was mentioned back before Ant-Man 3. Like, no one was serious. You had your direction. Life happened, the world happened, some atrocious things happened. You had to shift, and you shifted, and just cop to it. Hey, we had to make a shift. We turned to one of our most reliable, a great actor of our generation. We turned to a linchpin of what we had done, and we made a decision going from there. Cool. I can see that, and I go, yeah, makes sense. You want to end this thing as you started it. I can completely see that. But to act like this has been some grandiose plan all along, when everything has been built around Kang, like you paraded and you had these huge display boards that said what your plan was for the future. We remember that.
Yeah. So again, not necessarily a shining moment on there. That was kind of, in my opinion, a whiff with this, but it was just like, oh, come on. I just, nah, sorry, sure, Jan. I'm not buying that totally. Even in the chat, Julio's saying, I always thought that Doom was always part of the plan because of the Secret Wars comics. Yeah, I think we're both like, Doom could have been part of it, but they're not getting to do it on their end. I don't think one MCU fan actually believes that. Like with everything, there's, but even Julio jumps in and says Feige shouldn't have approved the post-credit scene in Ant-Man if he was unsure about Kang. That's what I'm saying. Like, if that was again, when you name the next Avengers film the Kang Dynasty, don't tell us that you weren't necessarily going to be all in. Even if at the end of that movie, Doctor Doom comes in and defeats Kang, still you were all in on Kang at some point.
Yeah. Again, you had it displayed on your wall of this is what we're doing. You had every markup of this is the direction that we're going. So that was your direction. And again, life happens, things had to change. You had to make a very understandable pivot. It's not like a movie failed or you were coming out of the fallout of maybe the Marvels not doing so good, so you decided to pivot and then when this was always the plan. No, something really big happened and you guys had to make a pivot, and it was an understandable one. So let's not try and run this back as if you had this deep-seated, oh, you didn't notice that we had laid this groundwork years ago. That's not the case.
Yeah. So all right, continuing on. Don't expect a live-action Miles Morales anytime soon. Thanks a lot, Sony. When asked where Marvel is in development of a live-action version of the character, he said, Sony has their brilliant genius, incredible Spider-Verse animated franchise going, and until that finishes, we've been told to stay away. That is currently nowhere. And I get it. I mean, we both have loved the two movies from the Spider-Verse animated movie. That's probably the biggest bright spot that Sony has done with these characters recently. And it's unfortunate, but what I will take from that is that they want to bring him in. Once this is done, there is more conversation on the table. So I'm not going to be totally disappointed.
If we never get a Miles Morales, it will be sad, but it won't be a great affront to comic book movies. They have taken this character, they have translated it to film, they have translated it to amazing films that still hold up to this day. You can go watch the first Spider-Verse movie and it still holds up. It's great animation, great storytelling. And if that's what we get out of it, then as a fan of this character, yes, I will be disappointed, but I won't be angry. I won't ever say, you never gave me this. Like, you gave us some amazing storytelling, and if instead of them shoehorning Miles in, Sony just focuses on continuing to make great Miles Morales stories, I'm okay with that. If that means that they get to make good stories, but if you're going to live action him and then it's going to be run by the same Madam Web and Morbius studios, then I don't want it.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna get Miles in the MCU. It's just we just gotta wait a little bit longer. Blade being sharpened again and again and again. The obstacle was Ryan Coogler called and said, "We'd love some costumes for Sinners," and we said, "Take them, man. He's a good friend. Takes our costumes. We'll hold off on the movie," said Feige. And he says, of course, joking aside, connecting Sinners to a version of Blade that was recently being developed was one set in the Prohibition era, just like Coogler's original hit earlier this year. Feige confirmed there has been 4 takes on Blade that have been developed over the recent times, two that were period, 2 that were not. Marvel has now, quote unquote, landed on the modern day, and yes, Mahershala Ali is still attached. He didn't reveal a timeline for Blade, but did say that he and Coogler have a timeline for Black Panther 3. So, interesting 2 things. So, Blade is still a thing. It's going to be modern day, and that Black Panther 3 is also on the timeline to happen as well.
I will believe Blade when I see that a trailer has dropped on Marvel's official YouTube channel. Until then, I take no solace in that. Now, when I watched Sinners, I did think to myself, some of this would be cool for a Blade story. Absolutely. If they could have gotten there first, that would have been awesome. But at this point, I'm not putting my faith in the Blade movies happening. I am with Wesley Snipes. There's only ever been one Blade. There only ever will be.
Yep. Tonal malleability is a key to Marvel's success. Yes, there will still be more R-rated stories coming. So Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as the Daredevil TV show, have shown that Marvel is becoming more and more comfortable with pushing stories that are adult-oriented. But its characters can also appear in age-appropriate settings when needed. It's all a way to keep audiences interested and invested. That is how, Feige pointed out, you can have the Green Goblin build a snowman in Disney Plus's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but then kill Aunt May in Spider-Man No Way Home. True, that's. Or I like this next one. Punisher's another example. The violent vigilante played by John Bernthal is the subject of a special that just began shooting last week and will air on Disney Plus next year. It is intended to be TVMA, but when Punisher is in a Spider-Man movie, it'll be a different tonality, said Feige, confirming that the character is in the next Spider-Man movie, which we also talked about in the show. I don't disagree with that. It's just interesting. You know, I trust Marvel. I do. I trust Kevin Feige. I trust the writers. And again, with the way Bernthal has been very protective of the character, I would be very hard-pressed to say he's just agreeing to something for a paycheck because of how much he first time said no when he was first approached to do the Daredevil show when it was in its original iteration, but then came back later when it met his expectations. So the tonal shift that is going to be involved with Punisher in the new Spider-Man movie had to have met at least some of his expectations that he could make this shift and still be comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. He does the mention of the duality of the Green Goblins. I think that is different from the way that Punisher is going to be played. I think that the version that we're going to get in Spider-Man will still be very close to John Bernthal's Punisher. Yes, you're not going to hear the F word in the Spider-Man movie. You may not see the blood splatter like you have seen in the Netflix and Disney Plus shows. There will be some cutaways, the assumed deaths and things like that. Someone will get shot but not killed, but it will still be the true Punisher. And I think that John Bernthal and Marvel as a whole, they can make that work. They know how to make that work without devaluing the character. So while I get what he's talking about tonal malleability, the ref, the comparing the versions of Green Goblin from Spidey and his Amazing Friends to No Way Home, and then the Punisher. Just that's an apples and oranges comparison.
I just killed a whole bunch of people in the room. You're watching Disney Plus and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Yes, Julio, we do trust John Bernthal in his choices in this. So, and the final part of concluding the Hollywood Reporter side of this interview, Kevin Feige still likes the flexibility of going into production without a set script. Now, there's some caveats with this. It's a very clickbaity kind of headline, so let's dig into it. The Marvel method of movie making has included ever evolving scripts and heavy lifting in post production. Striking a contrarian position, James Gunn, after working at Marvel, has publicly stated that his DC Studios won't begin a project without a locked script and a definite ending. Kevin Feige pushes back on this, said, "We have never started a movie without a full script, and I have never been satisfied with a script that we've had." So that them putting that things like of going into production without a script, that was bad form on the Hollywood Reporter's part. So they have gone into production with a full script. He just, as he's saying, like he likes having the flexibility to change as needed. I said there's a plussing that happens every day on the Avengers Doomsday set right now. It's amazing to watch because those filmmakers, those actors, both the ones that are playing these characters for the first time or second time and the one playing it for the 10th or 12th time, are the best in the world at it and know that these characters so well. So if they have an idea and you want to listen to it and you want to adjust it to improve it, I wouldn't want to change that. And I did say this was interesting. Stephen McFeely is writing the script, but Feige revealed that Loki creator Michael Waldron is also helping. That's interesting because we thought kind of Michael Waldron has been shuttled off, you know?
Yeah, it's and if you're really going for universe building, then I'm all for it. Bring those ties in and go from there. In reading this about the not going in with the set script versus I have a set script, but we're open to ideas. I think with most films, you need to be open to ideas. It reminds me of stage acting where sometimes you have that flexibility and they're like, all right, you can riff a little bit as long as you hit your cues and hit your marks. And I think it's the same way with this stuff. Someone may be on set and they're like, hey, I'm not feeling this, or I feel like my character would say this. You take some time, you go, yep, let's readjust it. Does it change the entire outcome of the movie, or do we just need to change this sentence and then that changes this following scene? All right, here's the rewrites. We'll call it a day. That happens all the time in TV and movies. So that makes sense. You've got your set pieces, you've got your moments that you're working towards, but if something just doesn't feel right or the actors just aren't delivering it, I'd rather have them go back and rewrite a couple of pages than for us to hear that someone doesn't like sand.
And Julio in the chat saying Iron Man didn't have a full script. That's correct. Iron Man, the first Iron Man, did not have a fully finished script when filming. So they relied heavily on improvisation and rewrites during the production. While there was an initial script, it underwent significant changes with the actors also improvising lines. So, I also think in the sense of when he says a finished script, I think they have a script. It's just it's not a script locked at that point. So. I'm okay with it. I think to the extent of, especially on a movie like Doomsday and Secret Wars, I think it gets, some people very kind of worried and concerned in the sense of it seems like they're, especially with the Scooper Madness, things like that, they like kind of stirring up the fan base and saying, oh, there's more rewrites and rewrites and rewrites, and you get quotes from like Rebecca Romaine talking about certain things. Like people read into too much, but again, they know. I do not think that they do not under. They are unaware of what's on the line with both the Avengers and Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. There's a lot riding out. There's a lot of pressure on this to land this very shaky flight that we've been on in the multiverse saga. So, however, I will say this though: if both of these whiff and whiff badly, and it's going to come down to falling back on the script and what was done, yeah, I could basically see saying we couldn't get to Avengers movies right. We went under this process. Some changes are going to be happening.
Yeah.
So. So we're gonna head into. Let's see what we're looking at. Let's take our first ad break before we get into the last couple of parts of these with the deadline and the variety articles. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. They can be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, so we are back in, and I'm gonna go step away real quick. David, why don't you take this? So this next one, these next two parts are coming from the deadline piece. So David, I'll be right back. Why don't you take it away?
Okay, according to Deadline, we are in our experimentation phases. The experimentation and evolution of I'm proud of and wouldn't change, says Feige, who counts WandaVision Loki as major wins for the MCU and Disney Plus. It's the expansion that's certainly what devalued the studio and its content. Still, it's worth the gamble given the bottomless well. We always had more characters that people were asking us about than we could possibly make, he adds. Coming out of Avengers Endgame, the plan was what do you do with this success? So much of our storytelling has been built for that finale on Endgame that we thinking about the future was purely about, well, what do we do with this success now? Do we do more of the same? I guess we had sequels line up. If you take success and don't experiment with it, you don't risk with it, it's not worth it. That's why Eternals was first up. Let's take something that nobody knows and has these giant celestial mythical creatures and work with the filmmaker like Chloe Zhao, who sat around pitching us History of Humanity. So with this, I get that. You had your big box office success. You had your what people felt was his magnum opus, his crowning achievement, and you've got some time to play around. It reminds me of how a lot of actors will say, "Well, I made this movie so that I could make this movie," and you had the great success. You felt like you had a little bit of leeway to work with, so now you just started throwing other things to the wall to see what stuck, and some of it was things that people were loudly clamoring for. Some of it was things that a small sect said that they wanted, but you guys decided to rock with anyway and turn into a big budget film. So I understand the thought process of riding that wave and experimenting, but it did get to a point where, yeah, we were throwing everything at the wall, and in their mind, everything stuck. So let's make it.
Yeah, and it kind of goes into something that I said earlier in the sense of experimentation is good. I really think there's a lot of bright spots in Phase 4 with things like WandaVision, Loki. You know, experimentation is fine because I like the idea of like we just had a major thing happen in an Endgame and Infinity War that just to say like, oh, let's just move on. You know, that didn't seem right in the idea of like some serious post-traumatic stress and looking at how do you deal with loss was a big part of this. But there I think they also learned some good hopefully some good lessons on where to take certain risks and where to kind of say like let's try to maybe instead of giving a whole group of people who no one's ever heard of a whole movie, maybe try to sprinkle them in some other areas and kind of do some test runs and see like what's connected and what's not. But again, you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your mistakes, and so they've had enough of these in the MCU where hopefully they're making some changes and we can see some ways say how. So why don't you take the AI thing too while you're at it?
All right, so AI in testing movies. The studio boss also questioned whether artificial intelligence was the answer to keeping VFX dazzled up and costs down. His response is AI going to do that? I don't know that, says Feige. Yeah, I'm going to say that I hope that for a while they stay away from leaning on AI. It is a great and powerful tool, but also you have brought success upon yourselves not using it. Don't go to that well just yet. You're not that desperate.
Yeah, there's a great video Ben Affleck talking about AI and what it can do and what it can't do, And it's one of those where I don't think the MCU is going to be necessarily something that they're not going to use AI. In fact, they've been kind of, called out on certain things, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're using it ethically, and I think we're still early on in this age of how do you ethically use something that could basically be scraping ideas, intellectual property, art from people without necessarily giving credit, and it's very hard right now to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. So they're going to tread lightly on something like that.
Yeah.
Richard in the chat saying, I think Phase 4 should have had Secret Invasion as Avengers level movie. I agree with you on that. That puts Sam Wilson's Avengers team together, but there were so many ways I think they should have gone after Endgame. Oh, yeah, there's definitely certain things. I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but the good thing about Marvel is there are plenty of stories ahead where they can, sometimes course correct.
Yeah. See, we go on with the testing of movies. Marvel has long held friends and family test screenings on the Burbank Disney lot. Given the MCU string of bombs, it looked under the hood to see whether the sausage making process was still intact. So Marvel began testing its movies through the National Research Group recruited screenings. At the end of the day, per Feige, both the Marvel and NRG screenings yielded similar results. The studio has long believed in family and friend screenings in order to keep the content of their picks secret.
That's interesting to know in the sense of, how they've been doing test screenings and things like that. So, I mean, test screenings are test screenings.
Yeah. And again, for some people, it depends on the pool of people you get as well for your test screenings. Yeah, with family and friends, you may have people who are at least interested in the project, so they may have a different viewing than your random off the street general audience member who was like, "Yeah, it's a cool movie, but I didn't understand all these beats to it."
Yeah.
So I get the idea behind it. And yes, it is a great tool for keeping secrets because at the end of the day, if you have a 10-person test screening and something leaks, that's 10 people.
Yeah, exactly. Someone in that room's you got to figure out who it is. So, all right. So this last one is coming from Varieties, and they're going to start off by talking about how far has Marvel Studios planned out. So after Feige was introduced to the group, he came in and said, traditionally, we have a 5-year plan. He now says that they have planned for the next 7 years for the MCU. So that he says, I think it goes to 2032. So 7 years they have planned out. And I think, again, that's what planned out doesn't necessarily mean, which is why we haven't seen a slate in a while, because plans change. And I think they've learned their lessons of putting things out that they may need to pivot from, because if you let everything out too early, then people call you out for saying, you said this and you changed your mind, and where is this happening? So I don't know. I think that's okay if they're going to keep their not release all these 7 years ASAP.
Yeah, I think that is a smart plan. So yeah, you can have this thought out plan. You could have this timeline, but I've always said, let things cook. Release stuff when it's ready. Don't force it. Everything else.
Yep. So the next part of the variety piece goes into there will be a lot less TV. So talk about the output again and slowing it down. He says Feige cited Marvel TV shows like 2010's like Daredevil and Jessica Jones on Netflix, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter on ABC, which were produced by a separate, now defunct division of Marvel Entertainment, though they had a tenuous connection to the MCU, if at all. He said, I think allowing a TV show to be a TV show is what we're returning to. Asked if the events at the end of Thunderbolts, when most of the population was enveloped by an inky black shroud of depressive nothingness, would affect Season 2 of the Disney Plus Daredevil series, Born Again, Feige had a very simple answer. No. At the same time, the line between TV and film is not ironclad. John Bernthal will be playing the Daredevil Born Again character in Tom Holland's Spider-Man Brand New Day. That reduction also meant that two of Marvel's TV projects were held over a year that had been completed. Ironheart with Dominique Thorne, which concluded in early July, and Wonder Man with Yahya Abdul Mateen II, which premieres in December. It's something Feige is not keen to repeat. He said, "I don't like it when things sit on the shelves. It stinks. The delay especially affected Wonder Man, which follows an aspiring actor, played by Abdul Mateen, with hidden superpowers as he strives to land a role on a TV show playing a superhero." Feige, who was wearing a Wonder Man baseball cap, pointed out that Marvel made the show before HBO Max's 2024's comic book movie Send Up the franchise, or Apple TV's 2025 Hollywood satire, The Studio, which is amazing, by the way. I love The Studio. But now it looks like they're not following a trend. They're following a trend instead of leading it. So a couple of things with that, less TV, again, scaling it down. I also am okay with not everything having to be acknowledged within the movies directly, but I think that exists in the world. I mean, that's something that James Gunn is also trying to learn to navigate with when we get when we get Peacemaker later this month, or excuse me, at the time we're going to be later this month, and then Lanterns. I think that's a very touchy ground. I think no acknowledgement is going to be questionable. I think just they need to do better than saying the event in New York,
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Is it going to be like the Netflix Daredevil series where you just see a newspaper in the background or a blurb on across a screen and that's their only acknowledgement? Now, granted, when it comes to Thunderbolts, they were attacking a section of New York. Doesn't show how much of New York was covered, and Hell's Kitchen is realistically like 1 square mile, so it could have not reached Hell's Kitchen by that point.
But they definitely would have talked about it. So, I mean, again, it's one thing to acknowledge it if it's organic. If it has nothing to do with what they're trying to do in Daredevil at that point, okay, it's nice. It's an Easter egg that I don't think is necessary. But Detail sounds like he wants them to bring it up. And William in the chat, nerds, yes, we are nerds just like you, William. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from less TV, diversity still matters, which I like seeing this. So when pressed on the question of diversity and films and TV shows like Shang-Chi, The Eternals, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, Feige appeared unconcerned. He said, "Marvel represents the world outside your windows," he said. "I've always said it. Before DEI and woke became a thing, and after DEI and woke became a thing, are we after, I don't know, I don't think so," he said. He singled out Miss Marvel and the Marvels star Iman Vellani as one of the greatest bits of casting we've ever done, adding, "I can't wait to see her somewhere else." Where that will be much less evident. At the end of the Marvels, Vellani's Kamala Khan appeared to recruit Haley Steinfeld's to be part of a young superhero team, but Feige danced around the question whether Young Avengers as a film, TV series, or TV special is on the horizon. Potentially, he said. In that case, it comes down to where's the best story and where's the best strange alchemy. Who would be fun to see them with? Each other, because that's what the Young Avengers are, but also mixing it up more. So he didn't say no. It was kind of like, the Matt Reeves meme we always like using in our group chat saying, interesting. In this case, possibly, and sometimes, no. I don't worry. Right now, is Marvel perfect with their representation in their films and TV? They're doing better. They can continue to do better. But I like how Feige's saying that we're striving to put the right people in the roles they are. And I agree. Iman Vellani is one of those, great castings that they have. I think they've landed a lot on their castings, very much so. But again, you and I both are advocates of representation matters. We want to put the characters in the parts. Wonder Man in the comics is not a black man. He is white. Guess what? I have no problem with Yahya Abdul Mateen II playing him. Why? because he's a good actor, and I'm willing to see how this take is because I think there's some nuance to bring in instead of being a white person in the part. Let's bring in a black actor to do this because there's other things we can talk about with this because of who Simon is necessarily. That has no who he is in the comics is not necessarily tied to necessarily race, at least in my opinion. You can get a great character by bringing in the appropriate actor. And you know what? Yawa, as Richard said, Yaya can crush as Simon Williams.
Exactly. There are some characters who race does matter. I mean, we
Yes.
cannot avoid that. There's some where their history does matter, their upbringing matters. When you start talking about people like Magneto, having someone of Jewish descent and who is playing that Holocaust survivor, like you cannot escape that. But then there are other aspects, like again with Wonder Man, like there isn't any part of this character where this is affected by him, where this is part of it. And I love the fact that Iman Vellani constantly gets her shouts out from Kevin and from everyone else who comes into interaction with her. Cause she's just an amazing soul. Like every interview, every time I see her, she knows her stuff. She's one of the people that they contact with to make sure that they are keeping on track with the characters. I
Yeah.
love that about her. But I also love the fact that it feels like Marvel understands that representation matters, but they also aren't just trying to shoehorn in representation. They are making sure that people are represented and they're represented correctly and they are understanding it and they're not going, well, everyone's telling us go woke, go broke, so let's pump the brakes. They're going, what makes sense to our story? How can we do this? And when we have the avenues to be able to do something creative or involve or bring in another sector, make someone feel represented and seen, let's do so.
Yeah. Richard in the chat saying there were some people that wanted Louis Tan as Danny Rand instead of Finn Jones. Yeah, I think the problems were Finn Jones in the sense of like the first season just did he did not do himself any favors, unfortunately. Second season, he heard loud and clear certain things were changed. I'm still standing by my hope as give me Colleen Wing as the new Iron Fist, please. We can do that. I don't care what the crowd says. Oh, here we go, the MCU. She was amazing in Iron Fist, and she deserves to showcase herself as the new Iron Fist. So, and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about Iron Fist a little bit later today. So, all right, finally concluding the last question from the variety portion of this and bringing a conclusion if Mr. Feige goes on the record. Kang is kaput, but what about Charlize Theron's Clea and the Eternals? So, while Kang is pretty much over, Feige was far more circumspect on whether audiences can expect to see other A-list MCU cameos that have been out there, such as Charlize Theron's Clea, Brett Goldstein's Hercules, Harry Styles' Star Fox, and Sacha Baron Cohen's Mephisto, again in later projects. Feige said, "Do you want to see them again?" Acting very playfully. When the reporter responded that the inclusion of those characters indicates a promise that they would return at some point, Feige brought up the return of Tim Blake Nelson's character Samuel Stern from 2008's Incredible Hulk for 2025's Captain America's Brave New World, or Ralph Saxon's character William Donlow in 1996's Mission Impossible to Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. This is fun to me, he said, so let's talk again in 12 years and see who comes back. What about major characters like Moon Knight or the Eternals? Would they return? He says, I don't know if it's any specific ones that you named, but yes, that is part of the plan. Characters we've introduced post Endgame will pop up again in some of the upcoming movies and beyond, Feige said. The fun of the comics is anyone popping up anywhere. So he said the perhaps almost tantalizing moment of the interview came when the reporter asked Feige about how often Marvel plans to make films that focus on a single character, like Shang-Chi, rather than a giant team-up film. He said, we were talking about a structure of an upcoming post-Secret Wars movie that I won't name, he says, but I will say, like Shang-Chi, it's getting back to the genre that we haven't done and want to do, and how could this movie be that genre? We would focus on a singular storyline by embracing a certain genre that we haven't seen in a while. Let the internet speculation commence. That was I liked. I wanted to include that because I like that kind of, we'll see what happens. That was a very interesting way to end it. So,
Yeah.
so he's non-committal on some of the characters coming back. I think we're all pretty certain Mephisto is coming back. I think he's kind of hinted around that idea. This is not the last time we've seen that. Charlize Theron, I think we're safe to say that Clea will come back. Hercules, Star Fox, I think we're all okay if they don't.
Yeah. I love Brett Goldstein, but if he doesn't make it back in this, I'm not going to be mad if I don't get Hercules. I mean, Ted Lasso was literally filming down the street from me today, so I didn't have a chance to pop over and see if he's on set here in Kansas City. But if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. Some of the characters that have been introduced, like I don't need. Would I like to see a follow up one? Absolutely. I would love to see Moon Knight appear again. But if we don't get anything with Clea going forward, it's not going to be something that 10 years down the line, I'm knocking on Marvel's door saying, hey, what about this post credit that you promised me? Hey, where's Harry Styles? I need Star Fox in my life.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You definitely do not need Star Fox in your life. She-Hulk definitely doesn't need Star Fox in her life.
Yeah.
Richard saying, I hope Sam Rockwell makes it back to the MCU. Yeah, I think that's another one I would like to see just because he's such a great actor and he did such a good job with playing Justin Hammer. So, but all right, so that was pretty much all the main points from the three different publications that had some sit-down time with Kevin Feige. Us breaking it down. So we'll wait and see. He gave some things to think about, confirmed some other things, and hinted towards the future. So, but all right. So we're going to take our next ad break before getting into the other news items of the week. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they could be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. So let us take a little break from news and let's go breaking down a trailer because as of, if you are listening to this and not watching it tonight, you're listening to this. Well, guess what? Eyes of Wakanda have dropped all 4 episodes of this miniseries at this point. So that is what David and I will be covering next week in all 4 episodes. So that will probably be the makeup of the show unless some major news comes. We're mainly going to focus on that. But yeah, so this drops all 4 episodes. They're about 30 minutes in length, so you got about 2 hours of content to watch this weekend. So they dropped an official trailer to celebrate its arrival. So as always, the sound is off. We have closed captioning up, and we're going to be breaking this down as we watch through this. So I love the animation style. Let's talk about Wakanda as a kingdom. You see the Dora Milaje. Many secrets. It's Wakanda. Why not secrets? Director of, here we go, Black Panther. Come on, we got to put Sinners up there.
Director of all your favorite black movies over the last 10 years.
Jeez. Wow.
It's true.
So set across the world to do missions. So this is an anthology. The Eyes of Wakanda will be an anthology series, each episode taking place in a different part of time, looking at the basically the war dogs and their pursuit of making sure vibranium that has somehow gotten out of Wakanda stays in Wakanda. So different points in time, which I'm very fascinated by how much of the history they're going to be talking about and their involvement. See, we got the Trojan War getting ready to happen, so we know we're going that far back of Greece. Secrecy is essential to the Wakandan security. Yep. So we're going to be focusing on men of Wakanda, women of Wakanda. They're going to be part of the War Dogs. And some interesting technology. Look at that. I mean, it's Wakanda.
Yeah. This animation is looking gorgeous. The choreography that they do on some of these movements is just amazing.
Mm-hmm. So 4 episodes, limited series. This is all we're getting. Some good fighting styles. Like you said, the choreography. Oh, there we go. We did hear rumors of this, and now we've got it confirmed. that we will be seeing, at least in the historical perspective, an Iron Fist will be appearing in Eyes of Wakanda. So now my question is to you, David, will we be seeing, looks like we'll be seeing a version of a Black Panther as well. So,
Yeah, which stole one of my factor fictions.
yeah, for probably for tonight. So, well, sometimes you just got to ooh. Oh, Gabe is back. For some reason. But yeah, so it was. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. I'm probably not going to watch all 4 episodes tomorrow. I'll probably slowly waking them away. Maybe if I can get 1 or 2 episodes tomorrow, and then the rest of the weekend. But yes, so David and I will be breaking down all 4 episodes next week. So I'm excited about it. Marvel animation has been a highlight of the MCU as of late. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I love the fact that it's going to be an anthology series. So, I plan on trying watching it as soon as possible. But if life happens and I just don't get to it, then, I feel comfortable. All right, I've watched an episode. I can come back. I can watch another episode. And yeah, everything about it just looks absolutely amazing with this animation and the choreography and just everything about it.
Yep. All right, so the heading back into some news items. This one's coming from Variety. Marvel's next move. So they talked about a bunch of different things in this. One talking about the box office and how first up they lost China as kind of a guaranteed they're always going to bring in some extra money. One of the insiders that spoke to Variety under anonymity, which I always have problems with anonymous sources, said that we are never going to have those days again. And the reality has changed the calculus of Marvel, and when it comes to making movies that are upcoming, and including X-Men. So, we've seen it. We'll talk about it tonight when we break down the box office from Fantastic Four's first week. And even with other films like Superman, China is just not guaranteed anymore in the sense of because we put out a superhero project, they're going to show up in droves. It's not impossible to get $1 billion without China, but it doesn't help. But also, again, as we've said before, the idea of every one of these movies hitting $1 billion, a new measurement has to be looked at for success, and it's not $1 billion anymore. Casting will begin soon on X-Men, and the field is wide open. Marvel has indicated to reps that it is looking for younger talent rather than A-listers to keep the costs down, says one of the agents that has gotten the call sheet for that. Marvel is holding a July 23rd, 2027 on the release calendar for an unnamed film, but sources have told Variety that it is not going to be filled by X-Men. Marvel has declined to comment on what that film is going to be. So the July 23rd date is not going to be X-Men. So that's interesting. Amid the industry-wide pullback of superheroes, the Marvel brain trust is feeling a sense of urgency on the long-dating Blade reboot and even a new Deadpool outing. But sources tell them that, they are, as they said, there's no urgency to put out another Blade movie and to put out another Deadpool movie. Blade, I understand now because of how long, they've been trying to get this off the ground. But not putting on another Deadpool. My only reason for thinking they're not wanting to put another solo outing immediately is because Deadpool is coming out either Doomsday, Secret Wars, or both. That's why I think that they're not feeling the urgency to do it. Now, we've also talked about on the show how Ryan Reynolds is working on the early beginnings of another Deadpool movie. But again, that's going to be years down the line. But if Deadpool... I don't think either one of us are thinking Deadpool and Wolverine aren't going to show up in the next movies, but that's probably why the sense of urgency is not there.
Yeah. There's no rush on Deadpool. This isn't one of those things of they have to strike while the iron's hot. I mean, they've proven over the course of its release schedule that when they release it, people are going to go to it. So they've got some times. That's not something that needs to be rushed in any means. And technically, by my calculation, they still have, let's see, 34 years left on Hugh Jackman's contract.
Yep.
So, I mean, they've got time.
Yeah. Kevin Davis in the chat saying Superman and Fantastic Four was never going to make $1 billion no matter how good the reviews and audience support. Yeah, again, the age of streaming. That necessarily doesn't. It makes it a lot harder if people are willing to wait. I don't think it's either one of us are surprised the idea that they're going to cast young non-A-list actors for the X-Men.
Makes sense.
This is a career-defining movie for some. So we'll just have to see. But that wasn't necessarily surprising. But again, there's more and more chatter about X-Men coming. So
Yeah.
but,
You may get one big star who they can put on the marquee, but I feel like the majority of the cast will be new or unknown, and this be a launching vehicle for them and something that they can tie them with going forward.
yep. All right, David. Why don't you we'll close out the news with the box office. Why don't you take all the box office? This is all coming from Luis Fernando.
All right, so Fantastic Four first steps. Box office for weekend number one. It opened at number one again.
Shocker.
No surprise right there. Beat industry projections and became just number four film of 2025 to score a 100 million or more 3-day weekend at the U.S. box office. They had a $118 million 3-day opening, only under Superman's 125 million and Lilo and Stitch's 164 million. Minecraft's
46.
Sorry, 146 million, and Minecraft's 162.8 million. I've seen all of those, but Minecraft. I have somebody who is obsessed with Lilo and Stitch, and it was amazing. So I can see that. Number six. Biggest 3-day opening post-COVID for Disney's MCU in the U.S. Deadpool and Wolverine was at 211.4. Multiverse of Madness is at 187.4. Wakanda Forever at 181.3. Thor: Love and Thunder 143.2. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at 118.4. Considering some of these movies and their projections, I mean, for a Marvel vehicle that has not had the love and shine that it should have over the last 20 plus years. I mean, this is great news for them. A lot of these are established vehicles, and this is something that has been coming in with no established record. Crushes the 2015 Fantastic Four's entire 56.1 million domestic run in just one weekend. By Tuesday, it will beat 2007's Rise of the Silver Surfer's entire 131.9 million domestic run, and by Friday, it will also beat 2005 Fantastic Four's 154.7 run to become the most successful Fantastic Four film ever in the U.S.
Again, when the bar is that low, I understand. Like, I think it's more of the ridiculousness of the idea. So these weren't necessarily huge money makers in comparison, but it's interesting. So
yeah, the bar is low, and when you really think about it, there's 4 movies that it beat because the other one had a domestic run of $0 because it was never released.
Yep, exactly.
It crosses the 200 million mark globally on top of industry projections overseas as it scored a 100 million 5-day international opening over 53 markets versus Thunderbolts 86.2, Eternals 90.7 million, Captain America 4's 92.4 million, Superman's 95 million, and Quantumania's 121.3 million. Allied to a 118 million 3-day weekend in the US with 200 million production price tag, not including marketing, hits 218 million global opening versus Eternals 162, Thunderbolts 160.5, Captain America's 180, so forth. The MCU now had 37 consecutive films open number one at the domestic box office. The MCU is dead. Oh my God. 37 consecutive films. What are we doing with our lives?
Yep,
Currently sits.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's again, say what you want. I'm not saying the quality has not dipped at times and things like that, but just saying that, you can't say that people still don't show up for the first weekend at that point. I see in the chat that Kevin saying that Freaker Friday is going to be number one next week. Number two, Weapons, Fantastic Four, First Steps. I mean, again, that's we'll have to see necessarily exactly. It was front loaded. They did have a drop off of about 61% for Friday, but it's it's different. And we said it before, and I even said it on the vodka stream last week, to compare the legs of Superman to the legs of Fantastic Four. That's apples and oranges. You have a character, Superman, that is recognized really around the world. The Fantastic Four are recognized, but not to the same level. And so, again, both these movies, I say, if they both, we know Superman's going to cross 500. I think I'm pretty confident to say that Fantastic Four is going to cross 500. The question is how much further it's going to have. So we say August is a slow month, so F4 should be okay. The movies are successful. So, but where does it stand currently? And this last one came from Box Office Mojo, but right before we started the show, I got an update.
All right. It currently sits at a total box office of 249,971,547 with 150,912,736 coming from domestic and 99,058,811 coming from international. Again, it's making money, and for something that, to your point, Superman is a global icon.
Yeah.
You can walk into any Superman movie, and whether they do the death of Paul Kent like they did in Zack Snyder, or whether they change some things, you know the story of Superman. You know who he is. He's from Krypton. It's kind of like how Spider-Man could get away without the death of Uncle Ben. We know who this is. It's a global icon. Fantastic Four is nowhere near a global icon. So for it to have this type of run on something that some people could legitimately have had a bad taste in their mouth if Fan Four Stick was the last thing that they saw, or the only thing that they saw.
If they saw.
Or the campiness of, the 2000s Fantastic Four movies just wasn't it for them. That could be a turnoff. Superman is always going to be a draw. So for this to have this type of legs, I'm very happy about. And I'm very happy not only for these actors, but for this vehicle to just take off and help usher in the next phase of where we're going.
Yep. So yeah, we'll see if if there's any kind of big news at the box office. But again, we just talk about the box office to see in the comparison for this. And again, I said it before when the casting was announced. There's a reason they cast these actors in these particular parts, because again, they wanted it, at the very least, for people that may not fully be interested in either Marvel movies or this movie, they might be interested in seeing these actors and actresses in this role. They're not stupid. They wanted to put eyes on this in any way, shape, or form, because again, they wanted to get the Fantastic Four finally right, and I think they did. We both said it in our reviews, so make sure if you haven't done it, check that out. But yeah, so that is all the news that is fit to talk about this week. So yeah, it's been a fun week to try to break all this down. But let's kind of see. Yeah, let's take our final ad break for the evening and before we get into Fact or Fiction and Comic Book Club. So as you know, listeners, these ads keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. It can be a bit loud. Give it a 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, David, what is I see we got something interesting in the chat while I write down our ad break.
Oh, let's see. So even though let's see.
Looks like, oh yeah, Kevin. Talking about Kevin.
Kevin's question is, do you think Supergirl and Clayface will be a success for DC Studios? I hope so. That's just the short answer. I hope so. I do not wish negativity on anything in the comic book sphere, because if things fail, then that lessens the chance that we get more things in that arena. So, we got the brief cameo. I currently call one of the dogs that live in my house Crypto because of the Superman movie, and if I get more of that version of Crypto, I'm
Yeah.
okay with it. So yes, I hope everything is successful because that is how we continue to build and we continue to get good projects.
Yep. The quality of the projects of the DCU will build on each other. Supergirl, I think that is going to ride the positive coattails not only of the brief cameo, but also the coattails of the success of Superman. So I think that'll be success. Clayface, I think that's going to be one that it's going to come to the marketing. It's going to come to what we're seeing in trailers. I mean, they both got our money. I'm excited about it, especially with a script that was initially written by Mike Flanagan. Please give me more of that. So, but all right. So we didn't have any questions this week. That's okay. So let me, this is what I get for, I'm preparing for too many segments ahead. Let me pull up the fact or fictions from a couple of weeks ago that were mine.
Yeah.
Dead air
While you
time.
pull that up, Kevin had one more comment saying Green Lantern and Harry Potter's reboots will get some backlash, but it's not going to stop people from watching on HBO.
Facts.
Agreed.
Yep.
Everything's always going to, especially in today's society, everything's going to have a bit of backlash. And again, I wish every vehicle a success because that's how we get more. I currently have a group chat with two of the closest ladies in my life, and we are super excited for Harry Potter. So, hey, we are going to watch and we are going to enjoy and we are going to wish it all the success in the world.
All right. So, going way back, this is 2 weeks ago. So these weren't even mine. These are Mr. Hines that we finally get to reveal. So, number one, Wolverine will show up in the next season of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. 37% said fact, 63% said fiction. I would also be a fiction on that. Number two, Deadpool will appear in a Marvel animated project. 68% said fact, 32% fiction. Heart wants it. I don't see it. So that'll be a fiction for me as well. And finally, there will be no more Ant-Man MCU movies. 90% said fact, 10% said fiction. Okay, you got me for a fact on that one. I don't think the character's done. I think the movies are done for a bit. We'll take a rest on that.
Yeah, that again, I agreed with the same. I think that it's time as a full stop movie has come to an end.
Hey, they got a trilogy. Not many people can say that. So,
Yeah.
all right, David,
Uh,
what you got this week?
all right, so fact or fiction number one. Thanos or a version of will appear in Doomsday.
Will appear in Doomsday.
And we have Brent to thank for this because after Fantastic Four, he literally turned to me and goes, "This is on my mind." And I was like, yeah, "Hold on, let me get my phone out, go to my notes for fact or fiction, and yep, that's now one."
Yeah. So I will say no to Doomsday, more of a possibility in Secret Wars.
I could see that. I think that they would do Thanos for Doomsday and save some bigger ones for Secret Wars. That way, Secret Wars isn't too having one of those moments of pausing the screen. Let's point out who we see. Too many little Easter eggs in there, so that I feel like they will throw it in Doomsday and then save some of the other ones for Secret Wars.
All right. So we're split on that. What you got next?
Which then brings me to number two. We will see the Norrin Rad version of Silver Surfer before the end of Secret Wars.
I'm gonna say fiction on that. I think they're going to. I think that. Nah. I think right now. I'm not saying we're never gonna see Norrin Rad, but I think right now we're Shala Ball right now, which I'm okay
Yeah.
with. I'm fine.
I don't think that Norrin Rad will take over and become the official version
Yeah.
of Silver Surfer, but I do think that there is a universe where we explore everything that's going on, and you do see another universe that was destroyed, and you see Norrin Rad's version as the herald that's either coming or going to this universe. May not see Galactus, but you'll see Norrin Rad's version as the herald that's flying through.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one.
All right, last one is Tom Holland will ruin something related to Spider-Man before a trailer drops at the Super Bowl.
Well, he kind of did ruin something with the when we saw the title for No Way Home. Inadvertently. I think they'll do some sort of joke with it. I think they'll lean into that just because it's a fun thing about them. So they'll joke about it. It'll be something planned.
When the picture was posted today of him getting his hair done or whatever was happening, I zoomed in on every aspect of that picture to see if he had a script laying
You went
out
full Spy Kids, didn't you?
or something. I'm over here like enhance, 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 just looking for any reflection of something.
Well, all right, listeners. Well, we will let your voices be heard when I post those on Sunday afternoon. And David, let's head back into Fantastic Four Life Story, issue number 4. So this was a story that the last couple of issues, everyone's kind of gotten a spotlight as the narrator and kind of things going around them, but focusing on their life. So we are in the 90s, and we are focusing on Ben Grimm's The Thing. So what'd you think of this one?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Ben. I thoroughly enjoyed Ben, and I remember reading this the first time and enjoying it, and then the second time, now with a different focus on it, I was like, man, the heartbreak and the emotion that is coming through these pages as he's talking. He's talking about how he knows since everything has happened, like he is different. He's out here looking for love and having trouble. This is the 90s, so he's going out to clubs and he's trying to meet people and
In the
you
club.
know everybody family in a club. And everyone around him is evolving, having their own lives. Franklin's grown up. He's about to get married. Ben runs into his ex, Sally, and, she's moved on with life. She's married, kids, and everything else. And Ben's trying to get out there. He's having no luck. And then, he gets matched with somebody on a site. And lo and behold, we finally get Alicia. So I loved having that moment with him finding his happiness throughout this episode, but he also does the second guessing himself. Is he worthy of this? And he tells her a story about his time as a pilot and the things that you do in war, even the things that, aren't on purpose, but it's a part of war. People die, people get affected, and how he lives with that guilt and sharing that moment with her. And finally, after so many decades, Reed gets a little bit of redemption as the world now believes Galactus truly is coming. The man's been signaling forever Galactus is coming. He was on The Boy Who Cried Wolf at this point, but it comes out, hey, something's going on. Galactus is coming, but instead of Galactus, we get the Silver Surfer, who basically says, Earth is weak. You have no defenses. I have been circling the globe and doing what I will. There is nothing for you. So I suggest you make peace with whatever God you need to, because you're about to meet the end. And unfortunately, though, we do get another piece of information that is going to be another 10 years before his master comes. So we get another decade of this.
All right, so let me start off with my positive of this. I love Ben's story in this one. I think it was great character development. I love the perspective that he gives. I love the little it is really that's the best part of this. It truly is the best part of this, especially with his struggles and how he kind of gets matched up. The eHarmony. At that point, I'm a eHarmony success story. My wife and I met on eHarmony. Those were the very early days of internet dating at that point. So, because we didn't really talk about it too much because it still to people, it felt like, oh, you met someone on Craigslist.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed, his struggles with that, and then the intermixed with, Galactus, the Silver Surfer, and things like that. Okay, that's fine. And the interesting thing, what Reed really looks like in the sense of how old he's gotten, in that he has to kind of set himself to what everyone else thinks he's looking like, and creating what he considers to be the successful Star Wars or galactic defense around the Earth, and how confident it is, and while basically Silver Surfer just in an instant just destroys everything within seconds. Um, I'm glad they didn't go the route of like, when Ben tried to go after Silver Surfer, he almost gets lost into the star, and I'm glad that didn't happen. That would have been like, oh, really? Did we have to like take that? We already lost Johnny.
Yeah.
But then what happens at the end with Silver Surfer announcing the coming to Galactus and how long it's going to take? I'm just going to be like, you know, right here in this issue is reason why I'm just gonna be honest with y'all listeners. Like, right here is where I was like, this is where I fell off on the series. Like, I finished it, but this is what my problem with this series is. It's not the character development around the characters in the individual stories. It's this whole idea of, you just said it, the boy who cried wolf. It's like, Galactus is coming, Galactus is coming, Galactus is coming, and then basically Silver Surfer, he's gonna come in 10 years. Oh, are you kidding me? You know, I'm sorry, but the idea that we've basically taken this entire series and it's just Galactus, 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 like, I'm there was so much more they could have done with this instead of just focusing so much on Galactus. Galactus could have been there, but they could have done so much more, and there were so hints of it. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Spider-Man life story is so much of a better blueprint for what they could have done. They didn't need to do an exact translation, but what Chip Zdarsky did with Bagley on the book, there was something special. Now, the art has always been great with this. That's fine, but I don't like the choice of just constantly focus on this coming into Galactus. And the biggest smack in the face was like, he's going to come in 10 years. Oh, okay. I get the gimmick of the series. That's fine. But come on.
This was the one time where it truly felt that you are trying to stretch out this story.
Yeah,
Like
pun
instead
intended.
of it, yeah, instead of it making sense, okay, now we're doing this now it's to the point of like, all right, we get it. Reed is concerned about Galactus. And then when you end with, and my master will be here, dot dot dot, in 10 more years. I'm waiting on the old school Batman. Stay tuned next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Like, you just threw out a to be continued in your own story, and
And not in a good way.
yeah. At this point, I'm like, can he just hurry up and get here so we can have this big
End
climactic
it.
fight?
That
Yeah,
that I'm feeling because I don't remember. Like I said, I've read it. It didn't stick out to me. But I'm just gonna say right now, I think it's gonna come off as very anticlimactic and say, really, we geared up for this. I just don't feel like it's gonna be worth it.
yeah. If I was still in my going to the shop and buying books weekly phase of my life, this would probably be the time where I go, you know what? Take that out the rotation. I'm going to supplement something else in there. I'm going to spend my money elsewhere because this is no longer feeling like an event. It's feeling like a drawn out story.
Yep. But we're gonna finish it. We're gonna finish it because again, I wanna see if it somehow pulls me back in. But like I said, this was to our point. This is where it's like, oh, come on, man. You know. But so we will get to issue 5 next week and see exactly can it salvage. Like we said, like there's a lot to like about this issue, but that was just a punch to the guts, like saying you got to be kidding me. So, but all right, well, volume 268 in the books, a big chunky episode, and as always, stay tuned for our post credits. There was a little other news that slipped in through San Diego Comic-Con Marvel related that we will talk about in a little bit. So. All right, and but yeah, David, tell people how they can follow you.
You can follow me on all the socials at the Phantom as listed below. You can follow me here on the Geekverse as part of the Gimmick, our wrestling series. We have SummerSlam coming up this week. That's like the big wrestling midway through the season point. It's the second biggest show of WWE for the year, and it's a 2-night event, and we will be coming to you with our thoughts, views, and opinions afterwards. We're going to be scheduling another My GM Mode playthrough coming soon. So yeah, if you're into wrestling, you can catch me there. But if not, you can catch me on all socials at The Phantom, where I talk a wide variety of nerddom.
Yes, and you can check me out on all the socials at Chris Balga. You can catch me every Saturday on the Brave and the Boys YouTube channel for the Organic Price Books Weekly Buyer's Guide at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can follow the show on Twitter at Marvel 8 Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast at gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions. Continue to rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed, the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network feed, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us live in the chat. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, David. So post-credits discussion tonight. We are looking at SDCC. There was no Hall H. There was definitely some comic news, and this was probably one of the biggest pieces of news to hit, is Marvel announcing Ultimate Endgame. So since its creation in 2023, Marvel's new Ultimate Universe has taken the industry by storm with bold reinventions of Spider-Man, Black Panther, the Avengers, and X-Men. Just now at the highly anticipated Marvel Comics Ultimate Universe panel, Ultimate Spider-Man writer and visionary mind behind the Ultimate Universe of this iteration, Jonathan Hickman, and editor-in-chief C.B. Cebulski, and Ultimate editor Will Moss, with writer Dennis Camp, and Ultimate Wolverine writer Chris Candon, shed some light on the future of this. They revealed that the final issue of Ultimate Spider-Man and the official announcement of Ultimate Endgame, a 5-part series written by Dennis Camp, will be launching in December. So Hickman said that the Generation of Spider-Man saga reaches its planned conclusion with Ultimate Spider-Man number 24. Fans should prepare themselves for a startling finale that will cement the run as one of the most beloved Spider-Man runs in recent history, packed with dramatic and shocking developments for the entire Parker family, along with Harry Osborn, Gwen Stacy, and more. The issue will also create a promising roadmap for future storytelling. Hickman said, "This was everything I had pitched. Nothing has deviated. It's been really nice to execute the plan well, and everything culminates into this issue. Fans of the Ultimate Universe are going to love it. It's been a real pleasure being the writer for Ultimate Spider-Man." They teased Ultimate Endgame and delivers the moment every reader has been waiting for, the return of the Maker. Imprisoned the last 2 years, both in real time and in universe, the Maker is set to emerge and finally confront the heroes who have brought hope and freedom to a world that once he had a tight grip on. Speaking on the record, this is the craziest and most impactful story I've ever worked on, Dennis Camp said. I'm really excited about it. It's all about the characters. Everyone is coming together in this big way, coming up against each other in a big way, and the resolution of the long plot threads we've been seeing. It's a very big, very dramatic. In the Ultimate Universe, we can change the world. We can actually do it as creators because we have this incredible playground to go on. So the Ultimate Universe is basically coming to an end in a way. So we've got Ultimate Spider-Man ending and Ultimate Endgame beginning as a 5-issue miniseries. Yes, the lead-up has been the return of the Maker. In my opinion, love Ultimate Spider-Man. Really has enjoyed Dennis Camp on the Ultimate Black Panther has been okay. Ultimate Wolverine, that's just recently come out, hits or misses at that point. And Ultimate X-Men has not been my tempo. It was not written for me. I'm not going to hate on it. It just wasn't what I was expecting, and that's okay. But just I'm not going to poo-poo it because it just wasn't for me, and I'm not going to go down on something that's not a fair critique. So,
Yeah.
what about you?
I'm a huge fan of the current Ultimate Spider-Man run, but I was also a huge fan of the original Ultimate Spider-Man run.
Same.
With the exception of the Fantastic Four, I love the original Ultimate Universe. Yes, they did take some liberties, especially with the X-Men, took a lot of liberties, but I've been liking this run. Black Panther to me started off hot with the first couple of issues and then fizzled off pretty fast, in my opinion. X-Men has been there. When I have time and I don't have anything else that I'm catching up on, I will read it. But yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man has been a good thing. And I think this is a perfect time to bring in the Maker, especially with everything going on with the Fantastic Four. We get one more look at a different version of Reed Richards. I've always liked the Maker, and I like just his everything about him, his demeanor. So if this is who we're going to center this ending around, I'm all for it, and I look forward to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Now, does this mean what's going to happen to the characters? We don't know. They're going to be folded in. The universe going to be ending. We'll have to see. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride. The surprise of the Ultimate Universe coming. But all right, well, we will see you all next week when we bring about our discussion of Eyes of Wakanda. So enjoy watching, and we will see you next week. Bye bye.
See ya.